2 police officers and 2 protesters. Dan Halton is on those streets watching the confrontation unfold. You're watching live pictures right now of the confrontation on the street between protesters and police. Dan.
Carol, the cat and mouse game of clashes between student protesters and police are continuing all afternoon from all corners in the downtown of Montreal surrounding the Congress Centre, where earlier the Premier, Jean Charest, was giving a speech about his plans to develop northern Quebec, a controversial topic here that has got the attention of many students who think the government should not be spending that kind of money without consulting the general population beforehand. But really the main sticking point for the students remains the tuition fee hikes at Quebec universities, over $300 over the next 5 years. And that is what's prompted these clashes, which are taking a violent tone. Students I witnessed throwing rocks, large rocks, at the riot police firing back with very loud sound grenades and chemical gas. The air around the Congress Centre is thick with smoke. At times it was quite difficult for me to breathe.
They have confirmed, by the way, Dan, they have confirmed to me, I was speaking with a spokesperson for the Montreal police who said they are using tear gas.
They are now using tear gas. That would make sense. It is a powerful gas. People have been wiping away tears. I've seen both protesters and tourists. I spoke to one gentleman who was here for that Congress hoping to get work in northern Quebec, and the doors were locked. He at first couldn't get in, then he couldn't get out. Now his car, he says, is surrounded by students, and it's quite an alarming scene. But even with these clashes of rocks being thrown at police and tear gas in the air, there have been, albeit at a smaller scale, similar scenes like this throughout the past 10 weeks in Montreal, as this boycotting of classes continues.
This is more fraught with tension, though, Dan, because they were trying to actually get to the Premier for a direct confrontation. And
exactly, and some of them succeeded. Just a handful of getting into the building. They were immediately surrounded. This was at around noon a few hours ago, and they were prevented from getting anywhere close on the upper floors of the Congress Centre. That's when students outside started throwing rocks, breaking some of the doors, the glass doors of the Congress Centre, but they did not. The student protests were not able to get into the centre en masse to cause any damage.
Not en masse, but the police have confirmed that of the 100 to 200 people, they did gain access, and the police had to use force to get them out. And that's, as I understand it, where 1 or 2 of the injuries occurred.
We're hearing reports of minor injuries. We did see people getting trampled by the charging riot squad. People were handcuffed. Some people had blood on their face, and I'm told a young child also might have been injured from the tear gas. And we don't have confirmation, though, on the total number or the extent of those injuries, but I think it's fair to say there were some injuries, yes.
Okay, and also while this was going on, I mean, our cameras are firmly trained on the area around the, you're seeing, I think, a couple of technicians there speaking, but our cameras are trained on downtown Montreal, especially as we wait for the Premier to exit the Palais du Congrès. But that wasn't the only problem today. At the Chateau Champlain Hotel, there was also an encounter prior to Immigration Minister Jason Kenney's speech at 1 o'clock Eastern.
These students aren't just targeting the Premier. They're not just focusing their demands on the tuition hikes. They're joined by several different groups with making a number of demands. And throughout the past 10 weeks, they have been present at speeches given by other provincial politicians, as well as those from the federal government. They want to get as much attention, obviously, as they can to keep the pressure, to keep the momentum from those massive protests a few weeks ago in the streets downtown. They want to keep every day this daily momentum, and so they are staging these kinds of different actions on a daily basis.
Okay, well, we'll leave it there with you, Dan, and I'll just reiterate what we've been saying and explain what's going on. If you're just joining us, this is the scene in downtown Montreal. Riot police on standby. There have been clashes for the last couple of hours at least as students tried to make their way to the Palais du Congrès where Premier Jean Charest is speaking. A couple of hundred made their way into the building. There were clashes with police. There were clashes with police out on the streets as students confronted the police. You see some of the debris on the street there now left over, pylons that were burned and thrown at police. We will continue to monitor the situation, and especially as the Premier of Quebec makes his way out of